Good evening, everybody. Tonight's webinar is 5 ways to slow down your metabolism. And these are things you should avoid. Just to be clear, these 5 ways to slow down your metabolism, they're things you don't want to do. Just so we're clear on that. So, before we get started tonight, this young lady here on the right-hand side, her name is Nicole, and she's probably going to be on the webinar tonight. She very well might come on live at the very end and tell a little bit about herself. And one unique thing about her is that she's only 24 in this first photo, and she's 26 here, or 25. So she's been on board with me for actually 2 years now. She's never missed a single month renewing for 2 years straight. And the great thing about her is that right here in this photo, she's probably about 13-14% body fat, probably 14%. Which is definitely safe and healthy, but very fit for a woman her age. And a lot of girls that might get this lean or fit for a competition, they'll yo-yo up and down. Well, she's basically made tiny incremental progressions over the last 2 years. And she'll be able to maintain this simply because she stays plugged in, she stays on her program, and she always eats her next meal like it's the most important meal of her life. So, once again, she'll be on the call tonight, hopefully coming in, and we'll get her on live tonight as well. So let's get started. So how do I eat if I'm not hungry? We're going to tackle that topic tonight. I'm going to explain to you how you can eat if you're not hungry and the different things that surround that. Don't wait until you're hungry to eat. There's people that say that. I say that. And there's some people say the opposite, which is, well, you should never eat unless you're hungry. And we're going to tackle that head on. Now, this is a very polarizing viewpoint that I have. It's very polarizing, and it's something that's going to, this will comprise about 80% of tonight's webinar. And I'm going to explain to you why taking nutritional advice, guidance, or coaching from a recovered anorexic or bulimic will absolutely ruin your metabolism, and why the methods and the protocol that they use is extremely pernicious, and it will directly result in a suppressed metabolism. And yet it's stuff that they condone, they tell you to do, and it's tactics that these former anorexics and bulimics who turned fitness coaches and diet coaches employ with their clients. And it just, they might lose some weight, but they're destroying their metabolism in the long run. And for those of you that are Wolf Pup clients and are in the Wet Wolf system, more than anything, the number one thing I want to do is spike your metabolism, speed it up. It's healthy to have a fast metabolism, and that's what we want to do here. So let's get started. How can I eat if I'm not hungry? And there's a little woman I know, who she's a cop, and she has a really hectic schedule. She works nights, so she might not even wake up till noon some days, and she just doesn't even eat for the first 2 or 3 hours she's awake. And that's just one example. We've all known people that say, I can't. How do I eat if I'm not even hungry? Well, here's my response. You shouldn't wait until you're hungry to eat. Otherwise, you run the risk of undereating followed by overeating. Once the 3 to 4 hour time span goes by, you might not be hungry, after 3 hours, but all of a sudden, when 3.5 or 4 hours rolls around, you'll all of a sudden turn into starving. So that my point is, the hunger can sneak up on you very fast. And when you wait till you're really hungry to eat between meals, what happens is you always tend to overeat. And when you overeat, you're stuffed. And you're not going to be hungry again for 5 or 6 hours, and the process repeats itself. I'm not saying eat tiny meals, but for those of you that are on the system, you eat moderately portioned meals, and we adjust them accordingly to your hunger levels if need be based off your feedback. But that's the belief on that. And if someone says they can't eat when they're not hungry, what this proves to me is that they're not eating the right food the previous day. As if you eat the right meals, they will stimulate your metabolism day in and day out. And a more specific example of this would be when somebody says, I'm not hungry when I wake up in the morning, whether it's 6 a.m. or noon, whenever their schedule permits. You shouldn't be starving when you wake up. Let me be clear on that. You should have a healthy appetite, and you should be ready to eat. You should be ready to eat. Okay? You shouldn't be starving. But if you wake up with zero appetite, that tells me that the food that you've been eating the previous day hasn't stimulated your metabolism. Now, let me say this. Oftentimes, when most folks sign up with me, they're usually, almost always, stuffed the first week. Jeff, this is so much food. I can't believe this is so much food. I can't finish my meals. What do? I was stuffed. And then it's almost that magical first day of the next week. It's that magical day number 8, when all of a sudden they say, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry this week. I'm eating the exact same amount of food, but not only am I not stuffed, I'm actually hungry before my meals. And what's happened is the nutrient partitioning within the meals that I design will strategically speed up your metabolism. That will speed up your metabolic rate. That's what we want to do. And what is my metabolic rate? Let's define metabolism. All metabolism means is the rate at which your body burns calories. We want your body to burn calories faster. We want to speed it up, get it running faster. And that will credit you to eat more healthy food. More food in, if you eat the right food in the right portions, right amounts, right times a day, it will speed it up. And that's what we do. So my point, getting back to this with that analogy about the magical 8th day, is that what usually happens is that your metabolism might not really speed up through digestion in 1 or 2 days. Give it a good week, or at least a good 5 or 6 days, and then you're going to wake up hungry, or you'll wake up with a healthy appetite and a little bit of hunger. Does that make sense? So if you wake up, if you're chronically waking up with no appetite, that tells me you have a slow metabolism, as slow as a garden slug, as slow as a snail. Now, is hunger your friend? Well, let's talk about that. I made a post on my Facebook page a few weeks ago, and I said you should wake up hungry. You should have a little bit of hunger when you wake up. That's normal. And I had a woman respond. She put, this is what she said. I'm sorry, let me back this up. She said, why do I want to wake up hungry? She said, why do I want to wake up hungry? And before I go to the next bullet point, the reason she was confused about that is some women fear hunger and some women find comfort in hunger. And we'll get to that later, but I wanted to leave that point up there. So anyway, the woman says, why do I want to be hungry when I wake up? And here's my answer. You want a faster metabolism. That's our goal here, to speed up your metabolism, which in turn will stimulate your appetite. And your metabolism is what? The rate at which your body burns calories. If your body burns calories at a faster rate, it's going to stimulate your appetite. They go hand in hand, guys. Now, I had a bunch of women say this, oh my gosh, yay, I'm starving all the time when I wake up. This must mean I have a super fast metabolism. Remember I said some women find comfort in hunger because in their mind it translates to fat loss, to weight loss, to being skinny, to being fit, to being lean. Well, if you tell me you're starving all the time when you wake up, what that tells me, that unfortunately the opposite of this isn't true. So just because you're always hungry, that doesn't mean you have a fast metabolism. It just means you're not eating enough. Now let's be clear. There's a difference between having a healthy hunger to go eat and being ravenously starving. If you're waking up during the night starving all the time, that tells me we need to give you more food at the end of the day. And I've had clients say that. We have to, they've said, I wake up at 2 a.m. starving. Well, we'll go back and we'll add some more food. We'll add some more food at the end of the night. We'll add more food. We usually front load the food. So we'll give you more food earlier in the day, and then we'll add it at night if need be. But I like to front load the food, if that makes sense. So getting back to this right here, being chronically on, you might have a hungry day. If you have a really tough workout or you're just on your feet all day, you might wake up extra hungry and maybe even quote-unquote starving the next day, periodically. That's not what I'm talking about. If you're chronically waking up starving in the morning, that tells me that you're not eating enough the day before. So that's not a good thing. And I got to be really pinpoint on this. I got to really be accurate on this because some folks will let this slide. And if you got any questions, you're welcome to ask on the left-hand column, and I'll address them when we move on. Now, this is going to represent probably the next 75, or the remainder of the webinar tonight, of the PowerPoint slideshow is going to be on this topic. And I didn't mention this topic in the title of the webinar for a reason. And the reason I didn't mention it is because, quite simply, it would be too polarizing. A lot of women, I've been doing this a long time. I did personal training for 11 years, face-to-face, and I quit doing that 3-4 years ago, and I've been doing strictly online program design. And so I've worked with probably over 2,000 people, which, in a one-on-one situation. This isn't group training. And the reason I even mention that is because I want people, women, folks on board now to understand you're not alone and how common this is. And so many women, and I really realized this more when I started selling online nutritional programs and program design. And I would have the evaluations that I would send out, and so many women would, the more I got to know, they faced the dysfunctional relationship they have with food and exercise. More so with food, probably, but not by much. But let's stick with food for now. And just because you weren't a hardcore bulimic or a hardcore anorexic doesn't mean you didn't have some type of an eating disorder. It's very sad, or at least an unhealthy relationship with food. So that's why I didn't mention this in the title of the webinar, because too many women would oh, well, he's being mean or whatever. But I'm telling this here in the confines of the private webinar tonight so that I can get on the same page with you and touch base with you and have you really absorb this. So let's keep moving forward. A former anorexic or bulimic, they're the worst person. They have the worst advice for your metabolism. Never take nutritional coaching from them. Now, let me clarify that a little bit more as we get moving here, and I'm going to touch on that again. Now, like an alcoholic, you'll always be an anorexic or bulimic. Even if you're recovered, you'll always be branded as one forever. Here's what that means. We all know an alcoholic, they can not touch a drop of alcohol for 20 years, but they're still an alcoholic. They may be quote-unquote recovered, but you're always an alcoholic for life. Okay, I don't know if you folks have known one or had a family member, maybe even been one, who knows. But the point is that if you're familiar with that, it's the same analogy, the same relationship with an anorexic or bulimic. You can get treatment for it, and you can be quote-unquote recovered, but you're always going to be one for life. You're always going to have to battle those demons. And let me make another point before this next bullet point comes up. There's at least 4 current wolf pups that are on the program that have had issues with this. And one of them in particular has made a phenomenal transformation. I won't say her name. She knows who she is probably. But she's turned into the best example, the best emotional support example in the wolf pup, the wet wolf client journal forum, on the message forum of mine. And she actually admitted that in the past. But the reason I'm bringing her up is that if you're someone that has had anorexic or bulimia and has recovered from it, you can still encourage people. You can still support people. You can still point someone in the right direction. You can still lift them up. You can still encourage them. But what you should never ever do, no former anorexic or bulimic should ever be in charge of designing and building a nutritional program for anybody else, let alone themselves. Let alone themselves, especially not anybody else, because there's too much emotion involved. Anorexia and bulimia, that's between the ears. It's not a physical disease like cancer. Okay? It's between the ears. What does that mean? That means it's an emotional and mental disease. All right? So it's something that and that's my stance on that. And I think it should be illegal for these girls. And I'm going to use one or two as an example that I've seen on Facebook. And you can read their websites and blogs. They sit there and they tell their horror stories about hair falling out, weighing 95 pounds, whatever it was they weighed, and now they're giving they're building diet, fat loss, weight loss programs for other clients. That, in my opinion, should be illegal. That should be illegal. But let's keep moving here. I don't want to beat them up. We want to identify the things they're saying so you'll know to avoid if you've seen these. Let's keep moving through this because this is going to a nice little chunk of space here. Now, they're taught to fear restrictions of junk food, and they're taught to enlarge amounts of healthy food. Now, let me explain this bit by bit. Let's start with the first sentence. They're taught to fear restrictions of junk food. Now, why would a former anorexic or bulimic ever fear a restriction of junk food? I'm going to tell you why. There was a girl I knew back in 1993, way back in high school, and she was battling anorexia. And at one point, the doctor said, just have 3 Dairy Queen, at least one, but up to 3 Dairy Queen Blizzards a day. And if you've ever eaten a Dairy Queen Blizzard with all the toppings and stuff mixed in with it, they're delicious. They taste awesome. Now, they're super high in fat, high in calorie, high in sugar. It's pure junk food, but it's very yummy. It's a yummy treat, but it's loaded full of calories. And the point is when you're deathly skinny, that any calories are good. Okay, we get that. We get that. Now, here's where the problem starts, is that the counseling sessions a lot of these girls go to, the doctors they go to, part of the counseling session of someone that's been terrified of food and has a fear of food, the first thing a counselor is usually, maybe not always, but usually is going to do, is they're going to say, don't ever put restrictions on your food. Don't ever let anybody tell you you shouldn't eat a certain food. We'd rather have you plump and plumped up than have you a skeleton on your deathbed. And I agree with that, but there's better ways to do it, but let's keep moving with this. And so what they'll say is, don't you dare let anybody tell you not to eat a Kit Kat bar. Don't you dare let anybody tell you not to have a bowl of ice cream. If you want, we're going to give you a green light on the ice cream bowls, the ice cream cones, the chocolate chip cookies, the Rice Krispie treats. We're going to give you you want a treat, you have a green light to eat that junk food. But what they don't understand is that dysfunctional young woman is going to misinterpret that green light as an all-you-can-eat slop fest, unfortunately. So you have a lot of these women that oftentimes go way overboard with it. And I know this sounds tough, polarizing, mean guy, but some of you guys might buy into this. So what happens is these girls that are now fitness coaches and fitness trainers and want to be fitness professionals, whatever, and be diet coaches on their Facebook pages and whatnot, they employ that same strategy. They say, no, you can have your Kit Kat bar. You can have your Snickers bar. Don't you dare let anybody tell you not to have an ice cream cone if you want one. Now, let's pause. Let's get to the next half of it. And large amounts of healthy food. Okay, I had a woman that suffered from eating disorders about 3 years ago. And on her program, on her high carbohydrate day, I have a day for her where I gave her a high carb day, ton of carbs. And I gave her a half cup of quinoa. Now, if you've ever cooked quinoa in the microwave, or oatmeal, but especially quinoa, what happens when you cook quinoa in the microwave? I'll tell you. It almost quadruples in size. A little bitty half cup of quinoa is going to expand and fill, it might even overflow the bowl. So, for someone that has is terrified of large amounts or a high volume of nutritious food, that's a terrifying thing. That's a huge, scary thing for them. So the woman emailed me and said, Are you sure you want me to eat this whole bowl of quinoa? Well, how much was it? It was a half cup. Okay, yeah, eat it. Now, why do you think she emailed me and said, are you really sure you want me to eat this? Well, we'll find out in a minute. That same woman emailed me 5 days later and said, oh my gosh, I feel so awful. I ate 3 Girl Scout cookies. Now, Girl Scout cookies, they're not very big. And 3 of those is less calories, and I'm not saying to count calories, but it's certainly less volume than a bowl of quinoa. Actually, it would have probably more calories. But the point I'm making is that this woman had no problem eating a little small portion of junk food, just 3 Girl Scout cookies, but was terrified of a large amount of healthy food. Does that make sense? I know when I said that, you guys probably went, this guy's crazy. But when I explained it, so my point is that these women, she had no problem eating the Girl Scout cookies. Could have been Hershey Kisses. Could have been a Kit Kat bar. Yet I was terrified of that. So I wanted to make that point. Let's keep moving. Now, they love to count calories and macros. Macronutrients are protein, carbs, or fat. Okay? Now, you don't need to count calories and count macronutrients. Instead, what we do is we weigh and measure food. 3 ounces, 6 ounces, 1 cup, quarter cup, half cup. If you do that, if you measure and weigh food, that takes the calorie counting out of the equation. Now, the reason these former anorexics and bulimics, they love to do the calorie counting and macro counting is because it leaves room for the junk food. If you get 80 grams of carbs a day, they say you can get 50 of those grams of carbs from a Kit Kat bar. That's okay. You have the green light to. We're going to give you that. There's a girl online, and the girl is as cute as she can be. She's absolutely adorable. I'm not going to say her name, but she's as cute as she can be. And she's a former anorexic and bulimic. She admits it on her blog, has photos. It breaks your heart. But she's probably the worst one I've seen. And she's a bright girl, but she has a dysfunctional behavior relationship with food. And she tells her people, her little followers or whatever, the people she coaches and works with, you could, as long as if you want to have all your fat from let's say you get 25 grams of fat a day, she says you can get 20 grams of that fat from fried chicken if you want, and the other 5 grams from a couple fish oil capsules, as long as it fits your grams for the day. We disagree with that. I disagree with that because, as you guys know, that are wolf pups, that are anybody that signed up with me that's online tonight, or those that aren't, we believe in nutrient partitioning. We believe that the food source is superior to the macro or caloric breakdown. And here's the great proof of that, is this young lady's name is JJ. She has 3 babies. Not 3 teenagers, 3 babies. Well, I think one's a baby now. The other 2 are probably young kids. But my point is that she went from here to here in, I think, 5 weeks? No, this is probably 8 weeks. And she's a mom. And she did this through taking out the junk food and eating more healthy food all throughout the day. And that's what we want to do. Let me get the next one up here and we'll move this thing on. They also fear frequent meals and love big meals. This is big. Let me make this point. Hang with me, guys. You're doing great. The reason former anorexics and bulimics hate frequent meals is because when you eat 5 to 6 times a day, what happens? It speeds up your metabolism, and you're going to be a little bit more hungry more often. Agreed? You guys know this. For me, it definitely is. And they hate the feeling. The feeling of hunger puts them in a state where they're out of control. And it's an emotional problem for them. Now, why do they love big meals? Well, I'll get to that in a minute. Let me make one more point on the frequent meals. And they always say, well, you don't need to eat 6 or 8. I didn't say 6 or 8. I said 4 to 6. Sometimes we'll stagger them, 5, 6. Sometimes 4, 5. Depends on the individual and their somatotype. So they're always going to, their rebuttals, you don't need 8 meals a day. We didn't say 8. You don't need that much food to speed up your metabolism. Well, it does help because we've proved in my other webinar through the metabolic process of digestion, which I've proved in the other webinar, and I'm also going to prove tonight that what happens is when you do also eat, forget the digestion thing, when you eat 6 to 8, or even, forget 6 to 8, 4 to 6 meals throughout the day, you keep a more stable blood sugar level. When you eat 2 big gutbuster meals a day, or 2 meals and 1 snack, you got 5 to 6 hours between each meal, right? That's a long time. When you take that long, your blood sugar is going to dip really low. Then you eat a big meal and it spikes way up high. Well, when your blood sugar level goes low, you get very hungry and you get lightheaded and you can't think as well. And when your blood sugar level gets too high, you get sleepy and lethargic. So we don't want that. We want your blood sugar level in that safe zone all day. Okay? And the reason that a lot of these former anorexics and bulimics love big meals and they tell their clients to eat big meals is because it gives them a tremendous endorphin rush. And also, it's hard to eat 2 big meals a day of healthy food. You know how much food that would be? I mean, can you imagine if I only put you guys on, for those of you that are Wolf Pup members, put you on 2 big meals a day? Imagine combining 3 of your meals. It'd be a huge, okay? You can't do that with healthy food comfortably. So that's when they add their junk food. They add their calorie-dense junk. And if you eat 2 big gutbuster meals a day, you get a huge endorphin rush. All those calories and sugars and fats come in there, and it gives you a chemical high. And they feed off that high. And we're going to get to that more in a minute. Guys, we're hitting on some big stuff tonight. This is tough love. It's polarizing. Let's keep rolling. We're doing awesome. Now, in the red is going to be the rebuttals or the battle cry that these former eating disorder people make. And in the blue is going to be my rebuttal to them. And this is what this one girl who I just mentioned, the worst, who's guilty of all this is what she says. The more restrictions in a diet, the greater the chance of quitting. What I say is the more boundaries you have set in place, the greater chance you have of following your program. We put that fence around the yard to keep the kid in the yard, so the kid doesn't wander into the street. Boundaries are there to protect you. Cheat meals are good as long as they fit your macros, and eating weekly junk food sweets, it helps you stay on track. Eating a filthy cheat meal only feeds your addiction. It doesn't make it go away. It only makes it grow. If you have a chemical high or a chemical addiction to this junk food, the way you beat it, feeding an addiction doesn't make it go away. It only makes it grow. So if you wipe them out and give you tons and tons of nutrient-dense food, that's how you beat it. Now let's talk about this. Some people will passionately defend their cheat meal, or as they call it, a refeed meal sometimes. And why do they do this? Number one, it's the chemical high dependency. When you eat a Kit Kat bar, Girl Scout cookies, a bowl of ice cream, a brownie, a glass of wine, and a piece of cheesecake, what happens is your body releases feel-good endorphins in your body. It's a feel-good chemical high or sensation that you get. Pornography addicts, gambling addicts, cocaine addicts. These are people that feed off that chemical high. People that are addicted to binge meals and cheat meals, they get that chemical rush from the cheesecake and the wine, from the Rice Krispie treats with whatever else they eat them with. And they get this sugar rush, and it's an endorphin rush. They depend on that chemical high. So that's why I have people a lot of times will say to me, I wasn't even hungry and I cheated on my food. I wasn't even hungry, and that tells me immediately. See, brown rice or sweet potato or egg whites or even whole brown eggs and strawberries and grapefruit, that's not going to give you the same chemical high that Girl Scout cookies or cheesecake and wine will. It doesn't give you that endorphin spike, that chemical high. So it's a chemical dependency on that high. So because they think they have to have that. They don't understand the science behind it. They think that it's going to keep them on track or speed up their metabolism or some silly hogwash like that. And the other reason is basically the same thing. It's 2 in 1. It's the feel-good sensation they get when they eat it. Now, let's keep moving. What causes addiction to the chemical high from cheat meals? Because we're going to dig deeper. And a lot of these anorexics and bulimics, or former anorexics and bulimics that are trying to be fitness trainers, fitness pros, fitness whatever they are, and build programs for people and sell nutritional programs, they always say it's okay to eat your ice cream, your Kit Kat bar, your cookies. But they use the different excuses and agenda that I just went over and crushed. But what's really behind it? Well, we just touched on it. the feel-good sensation, the chemical dependency. Now, they're not going to tell you that. Because to do that, it would be too much self-discovery. And it would destroy their platform. And they can't destroy their platform. They have to stick to the platform that restrictions are bad. It's good to give in. It's good to have cheat foods. It's good to have, what word am I looking for? It's good to have pleasure meals, refeed meals. It's good to let loose. It's good to, be yourself and work outside your boundaries. And I say, that's fine. You can have a junk food meal. You can have a big, huge, festival meal on birthdays, on Christmas, on Thanksgiving, on graduation ceremonies, weddings. And outside of that, you really shouldn't. Outside of those, you really shouldn't. People are like, what about Christmas? Yeah, have a big giant meal with your family on Christmas. Go for it. The problem is, though, people are going to go and they're going to have eggnog all day. They're going to have junk food all Christmas Day, and they're going to have it the next day. Then they're going to drink all New Year's Eve, and they're going to eat junk New Year's Eve, then eat more junk, and then it turns into then they got 5 or 6 different holiday parties they go to, and it turns into a 3-week free-for-all, and they're 14 pounds heavier at the end of it. But instead, have that one big family meal and eat whatever you want, but then get right back on your program the next meal. Not the next day, the next meal. Let's keep moving. Okay. What causes this addiction to chemical high from cheat meals? Any of these anorexics or bulimics that I see coaching people or telling advice, they almost always have anxiety from the pressure to be an overachiever from family. It could be in school, in a relationship, to have a certain job, to be a doctor, to go to med school, to get into an Ivy League school, whatever it is. And I can think of one person that has this, and I can see through it because I have the life perspective and the life discernment and industry discernment to see through the cracks. So they can't get this by me. I can connect the dots. I can do it. But these other women that are these coaches that think they can slow down your metabolism and screw your metabolic rate up, it's not getting by me. That's what some of these, not all of them, but some of them have this. Here's another one. They're unfulfilled in other areas of their life. And that's why you'll have I have clients online. We might even have some online tonight that say, I wasn't even hungry, but I had an ice cream cone. I wasn't even hungry, but I had cheesecake and brownies. And that tells me clearly that you're unfulfilled in a relationship, in your job. Who knows? Another area, and this is a big one, and this you're going to laugh, but this is true. A lot of these women, they lacked a loving father figure as a child. Listen, I've been around the block, folks. I've known a lot of women, whether it was in a relationship, intimately, or whether it was as an online client. You show me someone with an eating disorder, and it likely goes back to their upbringing. You show me a woman that didn't have a loving father. It can be an uncle. It can be a stepdad. That's fine. But I said a father figure. It doesn't have to be their biological dad, although I think that's best. But you show me a girl that was abandoned by her dad, and I'll show you a girl that's going to be dysfunctional in every area of life. And if you don't get that nurturing, that father figure as a kid, that I've seen women that are like, well, she has this, she has a good marriage, a good whatever else, this, that, and yet she has this eating problem, and we trace it back. Did you have a dad? What about your biological? Well, my dad, I never saw my dad. He left when I was 6. Now I know. Now I see what your problem is. That's another big issue. You can laugh, but it's true. Substitution of alcohol, drugs, or exercise. Yes, when exercise addicts can't exercise, they've got to get that chemical high from somewhere else. Pornography addicts, gambling addicts, cocaine addicts, when they kick the can, when they kick their drug addiction, they kick alcohol, they can't get that chemical high anymore. Who was that? There was the bass or the drummer for the rock band of the 80s called Poison. I saw this is like 5 or 6 years ago, they had that Where Are They Now on VH1, and I think his name was C.C. DeVille. I think it was him, and he was one of the, I think it was him. He was one of the, I think the drummer for Poison, and the guy, and they were all drug addicts. And he was like super obese, and on the interview, not super obese, but he was he was definitely fat. But the point is that in the interview he even said it's tough for him because society accepted him more as a druggie when he was thin or just average sized than they do now. Now people, they smirk at him, they sneer at him when he's obese. And the whole point he was making is that, he didn't make this point, but I connected the dots, and this is just one example out of zillions, is that a lot of times drug addicts, they'll beat the drugs, but they got to get that chemical high from somewhere. If it's not drugs or alcohol, it's going to be from sweets. It's going to be from junk food. It's not, guys, brown rice, chicken breast, black beans, wild salmon, asparagus, olive oil, that doesn't give you a chemical high. So you've got to get it from somewhere else. So a lot of these women that had the anorexic bulimic issues, they have to have that chemical high in sweets. One of these areas was present in their life. You show me an anorexic or bulimic woman, and I'm going to say one of these areas was present in her life. 99 out of 100 times. Okay. Fast metabolism equals fat loss. Remember that. This is Ala. She's been a phenomenal client. She's still on board. She's someone that has still, in my opinion, has an exercise addiction. The woman loves to exercise. Now, when she came on board, she was eating not enough and exercising like crazy. After the first month, you can see she lost about 1 inch off her waist and 3 pounds of body fat. And we added more. We added a ton more food, and we reduced her exercise by 75%. We slashed it. Another month later, and she's lost like over 2 inches from her waist. She's ripped and lean and sculpted, and she's doing less exercise here and eating more food here than she was here. Do you see what we're talking about? We want healthy food in, junk food out, and let the metabolism take care of itself. Let's keep rolling. And she's done an awesome job. So let's wrap this thing up here. You guys are doing awesome tonight. Now, the battle cry I always hear is this, from these former or quote-unquote recovered anorexics or bulimics. But I'm fine now. The worst thing you can do is just hope it goes away on its own. If you haven't sought professional counseling, you need to. It's not going to just go away on its own. Number two is that, this is what that one little girl, well, I'm not going to say her name, that she's a super adorable little girl that, is selling nutritional programs to and coaching other women on what to eat, who's a former bulimic and anorexic herself. I've read her website, and she has her story up. And this is what she said, reading fitness magazines, she said she read Carbon Dioxide magazine, and it saved her life. Let that sink in for a minute. Have you ever read, in case you don't know what's in a fitness magazine, let me tell you. If you think reading a fitness rag where 40% of the pages are an advertisement for pernicious fat burner pills or garbage protein powder, and the other 60% of the pages are scantily clad, seductive, sultry, salacious fitness babes, if you think that saved your life, you're in a very bad place emotionally. In case you guys don't know, that's what these fitness magazines are. They're not information. Nothing in there is healthy. Nothing in there is good for you. Now, I had a woman ask me this in the last webinar, and this is, folks, you can't make this stuff up. She said, should I get counseling first or start my nutritional program first? Guys, by asking me this question, this clearly proves to me that you're not emotionally ready to start eating healthy. This proves to me, well, let me backtrack and rephrase it. Let me withdraw what I said and rephrase it. It tells me you're not emotionally in the right place. For those of you that have spent any amount of time on my website, on my Facebook page, what's the very first thing I say to do on the pyramid of success? And I'll put it back up in a minute. My pyramid of success, it's on my webpage, it's on my Facebook page. The very first thing is admit you have a problem. The second thing is find a customized nutritional program. Your personalized, customized nutritional map. So basically, once you admit you have a problem, and if you're here, you probably know that, you always start eating right first. So when someone tells me this, that tells me, or asks me this rather, it tells me they're trying to wiggle worm out of eating healthy food. They're trying to hold on to the cheesecake, to the Rice Krispie Squares, to the moist, warm, chewy Christmas cookies with those little sprinkles on them and Jimmy's. That's what's important to you. For someone to ask me these questions, they clearly don't want to give up the cookies. They are sipping that eggnog, and they are drinking wine, and they're probably eating cheesecake while they ask this question. Because no prudent, discerning individual would ever ask if they should wait to start eating healthy. That's a dysfunctional question in and of itself. Guys, a Hollywood screenwriter could not write something this dysfunctional and this ludicrous. Only in the minds of the distorted minds of people like this and the anorexics and bulimics does this exist. And guys, I'm here to lead you through it. I'm here to take you to the promised land. I'm here to put the past behind you, break the chains of confusion, and blaze new trails in fat loss victory. Now, I'm going to bring Alla back up here. I'm so impressed with her. I'm going to minimize the screen. Don't panic. And I'm going to bring somebody on if they want to come on and listen. Or ask questions, rather. So everybody's here. We're still good. Let's take a look here and see who we got. Does anybody want to come on and ask a question? Does anybody want to make a comment? Does anybody want to say anything now? Is Nicole here yet? I told Nicole there she is. Nicole, I'm going to activate your microphone, and I see Donna, Rhonda. I'm going to, in the left-hand column of the screen, type in and let me know if you have any questions. Let me bring the thing back up. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you want to come on. I'm going to bring Nicole on in a minute, and got some good questions coming up here. Does anybody want me to bring the food pyramid back up? And I can actually go to my Facebook page and bring that up now. Let me know if you want me to bring the pyramid of success back up. Let me do that for you. Alla, would you like to come on? Let me do that. Let me bring up my Facebook page right here, and I'm going to show you the pyramid of success so you guys will know what I'm talking about. And everybody needs to follow this. I don't have a food pyramid. I have a pyramid of success. Can everybody see this? Let me make it bigger. Let me make this bigger. The bottom level, let me know if you can read it or not. The bottom level is take ownership, accountability that you are lost and need help. You can't do this on your own, guys. I promise you can't. You can't buy an ebook. You can't sign up for Advocare or Shitology, excuse my language, or what's that other one? Body by V or whatever it's called. You can't. You need a customized, tailored approach. And what's the second level? Obtain the right map, your customized program. Third level, read your program, meditate on your program, absorb your program. The fourth level, have faith, trust, and confidence in your program. The fifth level, follow, obey, and execute your program to precision. The next level, watch your program work. And the top level is sustain your program. Let me come back down here. I'm going to bring Nicole on. Let me get Nicole ready because she's the one, and I'm going to bring Nicole back up.
Does it work?
It sure is. Hello, young lady. I'm going to bring your photo slide back up so everybody can see it while we talk about you. Now, Nicole, I'm going to let you tell. While we're bringing your photo back up, I'm going to let you tell. I want to ask you first and foremost to share, if you would, what your diet and exercise was like before you signed up with me.
Well, it was a train wreck to begin with, but before signing up with you, it was a 2-year run where I was trying to figure out things on my own, and so I was going through every diet. I was going through all the stuff they had in the magazines and online, and nothing would work. So there was a whole lot of battling, like, what's the right thing to do? And a lot of times I was convinced that, maybe just not eating was the right thing to do because nothing was working.
So it's,
So,
go ahead.
I mean, there was a point, and before I even gained weight, like in the picture on the left, I was counting calories, like every single calorie I ate during the day. I would write it down, and if I went over a certain limit, it was the biggest ordeal ever. And so, steadily, the number of the calories I would intake went from like 1,200 to 900, and then I would try to go through the whole day trying to eat 500, and if I could get anything below that, that'd be great to me, which of course is terrible. And then I gained weight, like in the picture on the left, and I tried dieting, it didn't work. I tried doing the whole thing where I would eat less than 500 calories, it didn't work.
Now,
I tried even...
let me ask you this. Let me interrupt and ask you this. So it sounds like, and I think you're like a lot of, or you used to be, like a lot of women are out there now, and they think, and here's what they're thinking. They think that if I'm eating 1,800, whatever the arbitrary number is, if I'm eating twigs and berries, and I still can't burn this stubborn belly fat or hip fat or body fat, there's no way in the world, if I eat more food, even if it's healthy, there's no way increasing my food will make me burn fat. If I'm starving and can't burn fat, there's no way eating more food will help me burn fat. Does that sound like your thought process back then?
Yeah. And people try telling me that, you're not eating enough, you need to eat more. And I would just tell them, well, no, I'm going to gain weight if I eat more. You're crazy.
Now, let me pause.
Because a little bit...
Now, what happened, though, when you started out in your program with me, what did you think? Did you think, wow, this is a lot of food, or he gave me too much food, or what did you think at first, and what ended up happening your first month?
Well, I knew coming on board with you that it was going to be more food. Like, that was just a thing I knew I was going to have to get over. And so whenever I finally did get my first program, it stunned me. I was like, holy crap, because I didn't realize just how much it was going to be. And there was a little part of me that was like, I don't know what I just signed myself up for, but I don't think I can do this. But, I mean, I paid my dues, so I had to go through with it. And I mean, that was like the biggest mental breakthrough for me, was going through with it and realizing that I did need to eat more, and I was completely starving myself.
But
and the fact that it...
Keep going, I'm sorry. No, keep going. Finish what you were going to say, then I want to make a point.
It was just the fact that, it works. Like, eating more works.
Well, you have to, you have to eat the right foods. You can't just eat more cereal. You got to eat more of the right foods, and a lot of folks don't know how to program design that, especially for their age, somatotype, exercise, height, weight, everything else. But the point is that, and activity level. But the point is that, right, I didn't have these. When you signed up, I wasn't doing webinars back then. You've been on for so long, but I have, the how to speed up your metabolism webinar, where I, through science, scientifically explain how to do that. And you might even have seen this. I'm going to get off topic a little bit. Whenever a woman comes on my face, and I'm picking on women here, so give me a break, but on my Facebook page, and there was last week, a woman came on, and she said, don't ever eat unless you're hungry. Only eat if you're hungry. And I said, no. You should never wait till you're hungry to eat. Never. What if 3 hours goes by and you're not hungry? Well, you can still eat healthy food. And I explained that tonight in the webinar, and she goes, well, prove to me the science of it. Well, and I sent her the webinar, or I posted it and replied with the webinar on metabolism. And of course, she didn't reply to it because people don't, if you contradict them and you're contrary to them, they don't like it and they feel put off by it. But with me, I explain through science. I scientifically explain the thermogenic process of digestion through nutrient partitioning. And think of the easiest way is if you have a furnace. And if you put a big giant truckload of coal on a furnace, it's going to smother it, right? But what if you feed that furnace, a moderate amounts of logs, periodically throughout the day, frequently throughout the day? It's going to burn stronger and more consistently and sustain a stronger heat level. Or a campfire, whatever analogy you want to use, but that's the best, easiest analogy to use. Is there anything else you want to add? What did you think about the whole topic on anorexics and bulimics? Did one or two key points stick out to you on that? Because I know you've probably, every girl out there has had a girlfriend or has a friend that, wait a minute, my friend Susie Q or Sally J or whatever, they're, just so-and-so that was a friend of mine probably had that. Does that ring a bell true to you? Were there any key points from that breakdown that ring true?
Yeah, there was the point where, you said, like, the counselor's going to tell you, or whoever, that no one should tell you what to eat. Just eat whatever you want. I don't know, like, that definitely happened to me several occasions. Especially if it was, like, something where someone had, like, a Kit Kat or something, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to eat that. And they, no, you should eat that. You should eat whatever you want. Like, no, you shouldn't encourage that. Like, sure, I should eat, but not the wrong stuff,
Yep.
That definitely took out to me. And what you just said, as far as, like, the science and everything, even people would point out different things that made sense scientifically, but my problem was, like, my mentality was so just low that even logic made no sense to me. Like, there's just no convincing me otherwise that eating is going to make any difference. I shouldn't eat, more to the point. So.
Yeah, I'm going to keep you on here if you don't mind. I'm reading Ala. Ala says, and she typed this in here, she says, that's the problem. When I read J. Rob, this is exactly what he says. Don't eat unless you're hungry, and that's why I had an issue with eating. And I'm not sure who J. Rob is. I think he makes a protein bar or something, but that she makes a good point, is that these supplement gurus or coaches or fitness figures, they'll say, you don't eat unless you're hungry. Well, what if you're not hungry all day? That's how you speed up your metabolism. You can speed up your metabolism through exercise, okay? Through a thermogenic, taking caffeine, taking a drug, taking ephedra, that'll speed it up. Or you can speed it up. The best way of all to speed your metabolism up is through what? Through digestion. That's the healthiest, safest way. But emotionally, it's hard for a lot of women to do that. So, Nicole, do you have anything else you'd like to add? Or let me ask this: does anybody have a question that they'd like to ask Nicole? And if you type it in the left-hand column, I'll ask Nicole. Does anybody have a question? While we're waiting on them, Nicole, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I'm trying to think. I don't think so.
Nicole, what advice go ahead.
Well, I know, like, the whole deal with don't eat unless you're hungry. Like, I know for me, especially if I'm working, there's a lot of times where I'll at least do 5-6 hours where I won't eat or won't feel the need to eat more. So that whole idea of don't eat unless you're hungry, like, you go the whole day without feeling hungry.
Exactly. If you're like, yeah, exactly. For some, no, not for me, but for some people, you're right. You're exactly right. There was a girl that I put on my program that signed up, and I was talking to her on Skype a couple nights ago, and she said, she said she's off of it now, and she was just only eating 2 meals in the day, and she said, I couldn't believe how much more I was eating and how hungry it made me, and and it speeds up your metabolism. See, we're not going to use drugs, caffeine, thermogenics, fat loss pills, or exercise. That's why when someone signs up with me, we're going to reduce your exercise. Now, if you're already a couch potato, then yeah, you're going to need to exercise some. But I'd say 80% of the people that sign up with me, they're not couch potatoes. A few are, but that's okay. But 80% of the people that sign up with me, they're people that are already fitness-minded, fitness individuals that are overdoing it in the gym and under-eating and can't make progress and have hit a plateau. And the way you beat that, the way you overcome that, is to slice and reduce the cardio by 80, 70, 80% and feed them more food. And that's psychologically extremely difficult for a lot of people psychologically to do. So, yeah, and I mean, I'm sure a lot of people will admit that. Nicole, what would you tell to someone out there that is scared to eat healthy food and thinks they have to have a Kit Kat bar or cheesecake or ice cream or that glass of wine at least once or twice a week? They feel like, what would you tell someone that thinks they have to have that refeed meal? And a lot of coaches, they'll call it a refeed meal, but really it's a junk food cheat meal with like cereal and ice cream. What would you tell someone, Nicole, that thinks they have to have like a bowl of ice cream and cereal every week to speed up their metabolism? What would you tell them?
Well, speed up their metabolism, I don't know about that. Like, I've personally had some people tell me, especially as of lately, that they need that meal or whatever, but not to speed up their metabolism. But I would just tell them, no, that's wrong. You don't need that, and I don't know.
No, that's exactly right. In fact, you even told me. There was might have been last year, I think, or this year. There's another diet coach, or I think he's actually a contest prep coach, and we won't say their name, but you remember. And some girl saw your photo on my Facebook page and Facebooked you and said, I was either going to sign up with Wet Wolf or so and so. And they told you the name of the guy, and the guy, I actually know the guy. I've never met him in person, but we've emailed before. But he lets his people have a junk food meal every week. And you went and checked him out, and you went back and you told me, you replied to her, you said, no, I would never go with anybody that says it's okay to have a junk food meal. Can you overcome it physically? Well, yeah. But once again, women that are in this situation, it's not a physical issue. It's an emotional, chemical addiction they have to these sweets. And you've got to annihilate and abolish them from the program in order to break that craving and habit. You got to break that chemical high. And you didn't word it like I did, like that, but you more or less told her that. Do you remember that situation?
I remember I told her, you can't have your cake and eat it too. And she was like, well, I will have my cake. I was like, all right, well, then you're not going to get your progress you want.
Well, you can have it on your birthday. You can have it on your birthday at a graduation party. You can have it 5 or 6 times a year at a holiday. That's fine. But you can't have it regularly because that, and we've already, why. Nicole, we have a question. Amanda K. Sullivan asks you a question, and I'm going to read it for you. She says, Nicole, what was the hardest part of the program for you so far, Nicole? So in your 2 years, and I'll reword it, in your 2 years, what was the hardest part of the program?
I didn't find myself struggling much with the program. I'll say that in times where there was a lot of stress going on in my life, like especially whenever I was graduating college, which was last year, that's when I had problems just being compliant with it. But other than that, I mean, it's easy. It's just given to you, and you just follow it. And I don't have an issue with that. There was a little mental thing I had to overcome as far as like the food and eating it, but as soon as that month 1 went by and I saw the progress, there was no fighting that. Like, I was on board. So I guess it was just stress. Stress would be my struggle, but even that, I've overcome that.
I would make, and Amanda, you can ask another question if you like, and anybody else can. Nicole, I would even make this argument, and I've actually said this on my Facebook page, is that, and a lot of women agree with me, but a lot of women, and you just said this yourself, is that for your example, it was graduating college, the schoolwork, yada, yada, yada. We have a wolf pup. She's not online tonight, but she was on last webinar, and she said that she's in it right now. She's got a step kid that just moved in, a new step kid. They're moving homes, so there's a lot of stress she's under. But what I say is that your program is going to help you more in your life valleys than in your life mountaintops. What that means is that when things are going great in your life, your program isn't going to help you as much. When you're at your tough times, your life valleys, that's a metaphor for stress, for a tough time, for anxiety. A valley is, the low point, in other words. So when you're at a low point, a high stress point, low point, anxiety in life, your program is something that you can lean on to keep you on path. It's something that can keep you on track. That it's a rock solid fortitude and pillar of authority in your life when there is when everything else is haphazard. It's the only constant in your life. The next meal. Just eat your next meal and time will pass. So you said it might have been stressful, but I bet, looking back on it, it was really a blessing in disguise because it was a steadfast, rock-solid support system that helped you manage the stress. Is that safe to say?
Right. Yeah. I remember also, about the end of last year, I dealt with, my dad went through cancer and whatever. And so that was a high stressful time in my life. And like Jeff just said, the program was the only stable thing I had going on that I could control or whatever. So it did help me tremendously, just having one thing in my life just stable. I guess the only thing, when I say stress, was just I was scatterbrained a lot, so I would forget things maybe. So that would be the only time I'd have issues with being compliant with the program. It wasn't so much that I wanted to cheat. It was just, I forgot my salad at home because I've been so stressed out I didn't even think about it. Times like that.
Well, perfect. Does anybody else have any questions for Nicole? Susan or Alla, would you like to come on? Or I think Donna's. Would anybody else like to come on the webinar and give a good 3, 4, 5 minute little tidbits? If you'd like, let me know. Nicole, I appreciate you coming on. You've been a big sport, and you have really, I can't tell you how many other young women, and middle-aged and older women you've inspired, and men too. I know the guys love your photos. So let me ask you this: when are you gonna record a video of you doing squats for me to post on the Facebook page?
As soon as possible, I promise.
Well, I thank you so much for coming on tonight, Nicole. And if you would, and let me ask you, Nicole, and everybody else tonight, if you don't mind, as a courtesy to me, if you would please, go to my Facebook page, and my most recent Facebook post is a post in the recording or the registration link for the webinar. Underneath that most recent post, just write what you thought about the webinar. Hey, I liked it. You helped me with this. Hey, it makes sense. Hey, I think you were too mean. You're too tough. That's fine. Only other thing I ask is that you tell the truth. Now, Nicole, we have a couple more questions, if that's okay. Susan says, no ability to speak, no microphone. I'd be happy to answer any questions that I might have of a newbie. So thank you, Susan. And if you don't mind, also post on my Facebook page what you thought about tonight. And Alla and Nicole, I know Alla, y'all are like really good buddies. Alla says, I'm too shy. I have to say one thing, this program helps me stay on track and keep the guesswork out of the picture. A lot of times people second guess themselves. A lot of times people will, there's an old saying, paralysis by analysis. They overthink things. And a lot of people have that problem. They'll overthink things. So anyway, Nicole, thanks for coming on tonight.